So when you open up and I call this the overview page, you can see that this is part of Vamos Unit 2. So this is a lesson, this is a text that comes from the curriculum, but you don't have to use the curriculum or purchase the curriculum to access it. You just get it because you're a Garbanzo subscriber. You can see the tags. You can see that there's a word cloud for it, and I'll pull that up. And then you can also see that there's a printable, which is going to be a download. So let me see if I can get all that stuff churning and popping up here for us. There it is. So the printable, this is Nace is going to talk. Well, this is a really short one.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
yes.
This is
This
not,
is for my new, like I've been using this with my it's like an exploratory class that I've only had for a couple weeks.
yeah. So it'll be the full text, which you'll see in some other lessons. So it'll have the full text, and then it'll have the images from the lesson, which Nace is going to talk more about in the activities. And then you also have access to the word cloud, which is going to, you know what a word cloud is, but it'll take the full text, which I'm really curious what's going to look like with a full text that short. But it will take the full text, it'll put it into word cloud format, which you guys can use for pre and post listening activities, all different kinds of things, which I'll bring that up for a different lesson that's got a little bit more text. Um, so it'll tell you it's a short lesson, some of the core vocab, the full text. But a lot of our texts are a lot longer, but it's hard to just dump a text on kids and hope that they get it. So what Garbanzo does is it takes a text and it breaks it up into comprehensible chunks with audio. And the students, this is the teacher preview of what the student sees. So the students would go through. We've got a tooltip here to give us a definition. In English, the tooltips are images because we have no assumed L1 with English. And then with French, we're back to text. So French is French for English speakers. Spanish is Spanish for English speakers. And English is English for speakers of any language. Um, and then every few slides, you're going to have a processing question. So this is not a gotcha question. Una vaca es un animal o es una persona. The students have 3 tries to get it right. And if they weren't paying attention, they can go back and they can see, oh, it's an animal. That's right. But I mean, we're not expecting them to have to go back for that question. So the students would respond. They've got 3 tries. And then after they respond, you'll get an affirmation. Sí, una vaca es un animal. So you've got the original exposure to the content, you've got the processing question, and then you have an affirmation with another exposure to the content. So it's just about giving them a lot of chances to understand and build that mental representation of language. Um, and here's another little question. ¿Cómo se llama la vaca? So they'll go through the text, getting little bits of content, followed by processing questions. Every slide is read by native speakers. So we've got all of the audio. And then at the end, this one is this one is short, like I said, but you do have the full text. So whatever purposes you might dream of, Nace, I'm going to pick one that's just a little bit more,
Oh
um,
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
got a
yeah.
little bit more oomph to it. Um, Whatever text you might find, you will be able to have that whole audio. You'll be able to have all of those slides and all of those processing questions. And NASA, my internet this is not loading when I click it, and I know it's a me problem. So I think I'm
Yeah,
going to send it to you for a moment, if that's okay.
sure. That is no
Do
problem.
you want to talk about maybe the filters?
Yeah, absolutely. So our library is constantly growing. Hold on, I gotta get it out of my wheel. And guys, as you guys have questions, please drop them in the chat. Sarah and I just kind of take turns checking the chat. If we like brushed over something because we're so used to it, and you're like, wait, I need to see that. Just drop it in the chat, and we will do our best to get you an answer. Let me share. I always have 3 browsers and a million tabs. I don't know if anyone else can relate. If you just joined, like I said, I am full-time in the classroom. I'm in Western Pennsylvania, and I teach both Spanish and I provide the ESL services. So I use Garbanzo, Spanish, and English daily. So, and that was my dog barking. I hope he stops.
I don't think I heard the dog.
It was just like kind of a gentle wolf. Okay. All right. Can you see my
I can
garbanzo?
see your garbanzo. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, like Sarah touched on the filters here. And Sarah, I'll like pass this back over you to explain the difference of the paths and
Yeah,
lessons.
that'll be
I feel
perfect.
like you do a phenomenal job with that.
I love talking about
Um,
that.
but I do want to just kind of talk about our library. It is big. The first thing that I do recommend doing is searching by your language. Um, as Sarah did earlier, she searched by a keyword. You can do that if you know that you want to do a lesson on food. You can search that way. Maybe that's way too broad and you want a specific, I don't know, Sarah.
Paella. I know we've
Like,
got
oh,
paella
did we do? Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah.
All right. Paella. All right. So something very specific. You can search like that. You can search any word and you'll probably get a lot of lessons, but I'll just start here at the left. As Sarah said, all of the materials in terms of all of the stories and the texts from both the Somos curriculum. I saw we had some Somos users, some new Som users. Um, all of those texts are right here. So you can go, like I know in my Spanish 2 class, while we're finishing a reader, but we're Somos 1 Unit 6 because they didn't have me for Spanish 1. And so we're using the Somos lessons. And then in my 8th grade class, we're in Vamos Unit 2. And then I can just search that way and see all of the stories that are related to that unit. But again,
Let me jump in, Nasa,
yeah.
because I'm seeing that new sum is not on there, and I wanted to for my French teachers. Um, I am the only game in town doing the tags on our French lessons right now. So I'm going through. I've done the core paths, which I'm going to tell you more about. But the a lot of the lessons are not tagged for the filter system yet, so you can expect those this week, but they're not tagged yet. So I'll tell you just specifically when you're going in there, those of you guys especially who have the free trials and want to get a lot out of it, I'll show you how to find what you're looking for. But right now, the filters are not it for the French lessons.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. This EMETM is El Mundo en tus manos. That is a filter that you can click if you want Spanish news articles. So if you're looking for nonfiction text, we have lots of fiction, lots of nonfiction. Maybe you want an El Mundo en tus manos, but you also want it from a certain country. You can even double filter, or you want to go from Cuba. And then you can search that way. So that's a subscription that is offered where you get news articles every 2 weeks. So that's one way to filter. Then we just have our topics. If there is something particular that you're teaching or you're looking for, I saw body parts, childhood lessons, some daily routines, things like that. You can search, and that is a very massive search. We have a lot of different texts on a lot of different topics. But again, maybe you just want to search this way. You're looking for lessons on weather. Sarah, that was a weird the way that one searched. And then you can search by level. You can search by AP themes. Maybe you're looking to do, I don't, Sarah, I feel like I have an extra filter clicked. What did I do?
Oh, are you not showing up all your lessons? Well, just maybe reload the whole page. The
Yeah,
filters do stack on each other, which is something, yeah, if you
right.
accidentally have a filter selected, you will be,
Like I won't get as,
you
yeah.
won't get it all. You'll
You
be
can
limited by, oh
search.
yeah, it's only those
I
from
know. I was like, why are
Chile.
so few? Because I know we have way more.
Sure.
So when you are going through a library, you can search by grammar. Maybe you're focusing on a certain country and you want to search that way. You can also do that. But when you go to assign a Garbanzo lesson, really the question you want to ask yourself is if you are going to connect, are you trying to connect to content that you're already covering in the classroom? Like I said, like via a country or a holiday, or you're on a food unit, something like that? Or are you looking to build your students' proficiency aside, like on top of or outside of what you're doing in the classroom? And if you are, then the other way that you can search our library and assign things is by going into our learning paths. Sarah, how's your internet? Or do you want me to roll? Or do you want me
I
to scroll?
so we actually had a request
Mhm.
and I think it's a good one and I'd like us to try it. So Well, it's making me think of other things. So somebody was asking if we could show a French lesson and an English lesson, which I think we could, but I'm also sort of half wondering if we have a lesson that we have in all three languages. And I think we do. I think we have that catch-up lesson.
Oh,
Do you think we
okay.
have that in all three?
Yeah, I think we do. So I know I wrote the like my search is weird, Sarah. Hold on. I'm gonna just like refresh because I should be able to search.
Well, you're in paths, so come out of that.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. That
That'll
makes
get
sense.
you.
I was like, why? All right. So if we did wait, what was the French name? Oh yeah,
There it
okay.
is. There it is.
So Agustin le gusta la salsa de tomate. I can't pronounce French words. Like
Yeah, me either. We have our own. Nasa and I have developed our own French language, which is
I made up as I was like working on French stories. I was like, I can't wait till these have audio. I need to
yeah.
redo them because
Oh,
I
and
was,
we didn't write it. We were illustrating. We
oh
had
yeah, no, we
nothing to
did
do.
not
We were
write it.
not
I promise.
writing this with no
So the idea of this lesson, though, and we do have it in all three languages. So the summary is that students will read about a boy that loves ketchup, but not unusual foods. Now, if you scroll down, you get a feel for how long the lesson is, but also some core vocabulary. What are students probably going to acquire while they're reading this lesson? What are they going to get lots of repetitions of? And it's obviously going to be likes, le gusta. Again, French teachers, I don't know how to pronounce
Are you in you're in Spanish?
well, no, but I just
Oh,
saw it and I was like, I
okay.
don't know. But yeah, so one of the things you can do, you can assign it to a student. Like if you click assign, you just pick the student's class. These are my real classes. And then you can assign that lesson. You'll change the open and close date. Right here, you can choose whether or not you want that lesson to go to the student's biblioteca or their library after they complete it. This is really a really good idea if you want that to be an option for redos. If you're are going to allow your students, if they get a poor score, to redo it, or maybe you assign a bunch and they're going to have some type of assessment, they might want to revisit that lesson, then you'll want to do that. A lot of times I just assign a lesson, students complete it independently. You'll never have to make a subplan again. You can add it straight to the biblioteca. The other day we had a last minute FID day. Again, I'm in Pennsylvania. We've had lots of snow days. And it was a last minute switch. And I went into each of my classes and added lessons to the library. And my lesson across the board was pick three. Pick three stories that you find interesting out of the library. And I just assign them 5 points for completion for those. Sometimes I'll make them out of 10 points. And actually, if they get an 83%, I give them an 8 out of 10. If they get a 95%, I'll give them the 10 out of 10. But we can talk about grading if you have more questions on that, because some people aren't sure how to convert the points or what they want to do. There's lots of ideas on our social media. But the other way that you can do a lesson is just like Sarah had it in preview mode. If you want to do a lesson as a whole class, you can absolutely just project this on your board, and up here is a toggle to show the answers or not. So sometimes I'll give students whiteboards and I'll have them answer. But again, all of the audio.
Esta persona se llama Justin.
It's
So we've
Paulino.
got,
I love him.
um,
That's Paulino from Argentina.
yes,
He's a
and
really fun reader.
yeah, absolutely. And this is an earlier lesson for our novice learners. All of the audio, the native speakers, they speak with different fluency at different speeds as we get to intermediate and advanced lessons. So again, this lesson has the processing questions built in. These processing questions, like Sarah said, they're not meant to trip up your students. They're meant to give them another repetition, just like we do while we're teaching. If you present a word like, es la salsa de tomate clase, es la salsa de tomate, oh, see, oh no, right? We just build those in. It's just for them to get more repetitions. It just mirrors the processing questions that we use while we're teaching and while we're speaking. Sarah, we didn't touch on, like, there are lots of different styles of processing questions. You saw yes, no's, true, false. There's multiple choice. This one is a little fill in the blank where it like drops down.
But
What else?
the thing that they all have in common is that it's instant feedback. So right after the question, the student's going to know if they missed it, I mean, because they'll have to try it again. And then at the end, they're going to also get their score immediately. So you know immediately how they've done, they know immediately how they've done, and everybody can plan what they need to do next with regards to that. So oh, this is our
I
first
know.
real preview of a French lesson. I'm so excited.
Gustave aime le ketchup.
So we've got
That's
um,
Thomas.
the same thing. Oh, Thomas. Okay, so
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, the tooltips. So the tooltips here will be in English because we assume that we have English speakers that are learning French. So we have that, and it will just continue that way. And then
So, and let me just jump in while you're looking for the
yeah,
English there, Nasa. This lesson is an example where we did take the exact same lesson and put it in the different languages, but this is not an automatic process. So not every lesson is available in all three languages. Like, Spanish has
right.
certain lessons that are only in Spanish, English only in English, French only in English, or only in French. And then some lessons, of course, we've adapted for all the different languages. So the whole process, like you all know what's possible with technology and AI these days, but this ain't that. This is not AI adapting lessons into other languages. This
Mhm.
is um, almost all teachers, expert teachers, translating these lessons into other languages for students. So making all of those choices and adaptations that are appropriate, and choosing the right cognates and changing the story when it's appropriate to fit in different cultural elements and grammar and things. So you will see some that are the same, but you'll see a lot that are unique.
That are just tweaked, or like remember choosing all the
Justin
names.
likes ketchup.
That's me.
Oh, I was like, Sarah, that's you. Okay. So again, our tooltips, they do have the word again, but they have an image that is in there. So again, so yeah, we've like Sarah said, this one just happens to be one that we have in all three languages. That's not always the case. And okay, Sarah, do you
Do
want
I think my internet is stable enough that I can take over and talk about paths.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest questions that we get is Sarah, I'll stop sharing. Is Sarah
Okay.
does like a lot of people want to know like what is the difference of a lesson and a path? And um that's a really good question that Sarah's going to answer. And again, I think the very first question is, again, are you connecting a Garbanzo lesson to content that you want to cover, or are you building proficiency? It is okay if the answer is yes to both, but Sarah's going to explain why these learning paths are a really good language building
Yeah.
tool.
So as you've seen the lessons tab, which is like basically we've thrown in all 3,300 lessons into a big search bank, and you can filter it and find what you need that way to connect, I would say, with what you're doing in class, or maybe a student has a particular interest, that kind of thing. Um, a learning path is more like the folder that the lesson is in. So either it's just a folder and all the lessons in that path are connected in some way, just like you would use a file folder, or it's a sequential path that is designed to go in that order. So um, I'm going to try talking about the French paths first here, just to be, doing something new. Um, so with our French paths, the most majority of the paths right now are in sequential order. So I'll start here with the core path, core 5, and I'm going to need to shrink my screen down because I can't see like my tabs. Let me just try that here. No, not that. Oh boy. Okay. Um, so core 5 in French, and I am not a French speaker. So this is going to be me not pronouncing these words at all or very little. French Core 5 is going to start with these 5 vocabulary words, and it's going to spiral them in through a sequence of lessons, very deliberately building on previous lessons. So as you'll see, you can read these titles. Those of you with brains that are tuned in to French, you can see these stories, how they build on with each other and to go through the path. So that's core 5, the first 5 vocabulary words. And then core 15 is going to add an additional 10 vocabulary words on top of the previous 5. So still practicing these old 5 ones, but then introducing these new 10. And all of these lessons are available. The free trial right now for French includes all 200 lessons, and it's all the features for all the paths. So the Spanish and the English trials, we've kind of we pick and choose a little bit what is available for the trial, but for French, it's everything. So not only can you just choose these lessons to assign to your students, but you can also assign a full path, which means that I would especially think of Core 5 just because it's the beginning, but you can click assign the full path, and those lessons will auto feed to your students until the due date. So the students will do one, and then when they're done with that, the next one will pop up, and you can see their progress on all the lessons. They can see their progress, etc. So that is an example of a path that does go in a sequence. You can do them in any order, but if you assign the full path, it'll go in order, and they were written to go in order. We also have all of the New Somme units. Those are all the ones. So we have New Somme 1 units 1 through 8. We're working on 9 and 10 right now. And then we have New Somme 2 units 1 and 2. So all of those texts are available. And those are also in order of the unit. You might see some variation. Like there were some times when maybe there were with the Talk unit, unit 3, if you guys have taught that unit, there are like 3 versions of that story. Maybe not everybody's going to want to read all 3. So I stuck it at the end in case, students just wouldn't want to finish it. But you'll see here your first unit or your first lesson in these units is going to be just going over the vocabulary, just like you would do on the first day of the unit in class. So it'll tell you that these are the words that you're going over. You'll have your contextualized sentences just like you have in the curriculum. And this
is a lifesaver if a student is absent.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, just it's got English. This is just kind of like what you would say if you were going over these words in class. So yeah, if you're absent, if your student is absent, or, maybe it's time for an assessment and they just want to go over the core vocab again, there are a lot of uses for these. So in French, we've got all the New Somme units. And then we also have this path. I'm not sure that we have another thematic path. Let me see. No, so this is the only thematic path we have for French, and I'll show you some of the ones for the other languages. But this is a path that I would say is not meant to be done in order. This is more like a folder. So this path is about the Francophone countries. It's based on the Simple Facts activity pack that Martina sells on Comprehensible Classroom website. So you've got the Francophone countries, part 1, part 2, and it's just got little facts about the countries. And let me open one of these up, and I can get the stuff to load. You can kind of see what a full length lesson might be like. So it's got little bits there.
This would be where you could just divide and conquer, have your students break off and each be in charge of one country and make a little poster or something.
Yeah, and add them to the biblioteca and just say, hey guys, pick a country. It doesn't have to be an assignment. Just pick a country and do X, Y, and Z with it. Okay, so looks like we're about to get the word cloud here. This internet. I've got good internet. I don't know what goes wrong with me sometimes, but
on a regular, it takes literally 3 seconds for them.
It's pretty instant. So anyway, okay, we got the printable that came through. So this is an example of a more at length printable. This would be like a normal quantity of images you would get. And this would be a great jumping off point. If you want to talk about the flag, if you want to talk about Africa, you can just come up with all sorts of different ways to use these images. And Nace is going to talk about some here in a few minutes.
Just because, the images, I don't think I touched later, but while she was showing, every lesson that has that printable has the images. And I have found those are super, super helpful with stories that have like a sequential order. You can have students reorder them. You can have them, just do a little tocolo, touch,
there it is.
Touch the girl who's playing basketball. Woohoo! Downloaded. It works with facts for sure.
Yeah,
but I've had students cut them apart and do a retell with a partner. Again, I've had them just like show me that they're understanding me repeating the story by moving the images around. So just all kinds of things you can do with those.
So jumping back into the paths for a minute, something else that you'll see in English and Spanish, not French yet, is the playgrounds. So um, we've put some lessons into like Core 15 playground, Core 25 playground, and this is where we just kind of throw all different lessons that we think are at that level that are not necessarily part of the critical path. Like Core 15, the way we've designed it, like you do that sequence of lessons with the goal of intentionally spiraling in that extra 10 vocabulary words and hopefully by the end having acquired those words. 15 is more just like, okay, now you know those words. What can you do with it? You can go, you follow the path, you get to the playground and you get to try out all the equipment. That was kind of the visual there with that idea. So you'll see the playground lessons in English and Spanish. And then um, also in Spanish is where you're going to start to see like tons and tons of biographies paths of all different levels. So if you want a biography on anybody, whether to assign it or to pop it in a biblioteca for an activity, you'll find all the bios, you'll find all the news stories, you'll find holiday paths, you'll find multi-level nonfiction. This is all the vocabs. We've got lessons that go along with our podcast, which we're probably not even going to have time to talk about today.
It is
Grammar
on
and
the agenda, though.
context.
We can share an agenda with a link out to the podcast.
That would be
Lots
good.
of
We
freebies.
usually do that already at this point, don't we, Nisa?
We're a
Woo!
little messed up today. It's all
We're
right.
doing our best. We're doing our best. And then in English, Nisa, this is more your area of expertise,
Oh,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. I'll just mention that in English, in addition to the core paths, we do have core paths for English, but we also have academy paths. So if you're teaching English and you want to connect to what they're doing in their content area classes, you can also explore these life science, mathematics, social studies, different academic paths to assign content for those students. Um,
Yep.
Nasa, I feel like it's time to turn it over to you to kind of go to the next step.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Do we want to, we're kind of really right smack in the middle, a tiny bit over. Do we want to do our wheel?
Let's do our wheel.
It's okay to just assign a garbanzo, have your students complete it, enter it for completion points, enter it for a grade, whatever you're feeling. Don't enter it at all. Use the library, or assign them, give them some choice in it. But some people want to know what else they can do. And I'm going to be using a garbanzo story as an example, but you could do these activities with any story. We've specifically been asked to kind of other ways to extend garbanzo lessons, and especially, well, there's multitude. Before I'm getting ahead of myself. There's a multitude of reasons. Maybe you want it to take up the whole period. Maybe you're leaving it for a sub lesson and the garbanzo is only going to take them, 10 minutes. Your students just need more reps of whatever the core vocabulary is from that lesson or that set of lessons, or your students are interested, right? If a student gets into a story that you have to just keep going with it for a little while. So there are so many reasons why you might want to extend. And I'm just here to give you some ideas, and then we're going to share some freebies as well. I'm going to start with word clouds, because there's just so much you can do with them. And it doesn't have to be with a garbanzo. So hopefully you can take away something from these activities. So word clouds, before reading, the first thing you could do with a word cloud is to have students make predictions. I took this particular, I'm going to have you guys participate like a student. Take a look at, this is a word cloud from one of the English garbanzo stories. I would like you guys in the chat, if you're feeling interactive, to give me a prediction about one thing that might happen in this story. What is something that might happen in this story based on this word cloud? And obviously you might be showing them a French word cloud. You might be showing them a Spanish word cloud. I would be showing a Spanish one in most of my classes. And don't worry, I made Sarah do this. I made my husband do this last night and my oldest son. So if you're not feeling like you really need to enter one. Sarah, you're muted.
Sorry, I was just going to town.
I was
I
like,
was,
you're mute. I saw your mouth
yeah,
moving.
yeah. I was enjoying everybody talking about spiders getting eaten, and I know those are people who
Oh.
have read Martina's writings before.
Oh, so you were muted. Okay, so people did put predictions. I was feeling
They
really
did
bad.
predictions. Everybody did great. Yeah. So we had Kyle eats a delicious spider. Jesse's brother eats a delicious spider. Jesse eats a spider while walking to school. Kyle has a girl problem, which is even
Yeah.
scarier than eating a spider. Kyle's afraid of the spider. Jesse reassures him. Jesse has, yeah.
Oh,
We've
yes.
got great ones. We've
You
got
get
great
it.
ones.
Lots of predictions. That's the one of the easiest ways to use a word cloud. Yeah, your very novice learner is going to be able to make like a whole prediction in the target language. Probably not. But by the time you're in your intermediates and stuff, but still they're already going to be playing with the language, with the words they do recognize. Pre-reading activity, categorize. Show them the word cloud or print it off, give them a copy or give a couple of them a copy. Have them separate the words in the word cloud into people to like tell us like who's this story going to be about. Give me the personas, give me the lugares, the acciones or the verbos. Are there any emociones? And see what they can do categorizing. And you might just have them fold a piece of paper. I don't have a pretty thing for this. You might just split them and have them, like I said, have them each tackle part of the word cloud. So that is a good anything that gets them thinking about the story and interacting with the vocabulary before is going to raise their engagement. Especially if you have them make personal connections. These are some possible personal connections, right? The students might be like, oh, spiders. I'm scared of spiders. Oh, I have an amigo que se llama cow. Or spiders are cool. I have a brother. I like walking in parks. Maybe I have a girl problem, et cetera, et cetera. So have students make some personal connections before you start using the word cloud. And then you can have them interact and kind of annotate over that word cloud. Give them their own copy of the word cloud and tell them that they should star words that they already understand. Tell them to circle words that they're not sure of, or maybe they can underline if they think they know what it means. This is just a good way, again, for having them look at the vocabulary ahead of time, starting to already kind of interact with the elements of the story, because then you can transition to during reading, especially with that particular activity where you have them, they're not sure about what some of the words, you can have them do a context clue investigation with the word cloud. So as they're completing the garbanzo, having them complete something else really slows them down. You're always going to have a student that click, 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 and doesn't really focus on the story. And you'll know by their score. But this is a way to get students to focus. Have them guess the meanings of the words that they didn't know, now using the context of the story. So if they had bedroom circled or habitation, I wish I knew the French word. But then they would put their guess. They could write right on the word cloud. So that's an idea for them to use a word cloud. You could have them just do a focused reading. Just have them do a word hunt. How many times did you see the word spider? How many times did you see the word friend? And the reason that I have the magnifying glass and a listening is because, I'm saying this as if they're readings, but if you have the audio features, you can absolutely do this as a listening too. And again, you can do this with any story. It doesn't have to be with a Garbanzo story. As students listen to the story or as they read, have them find certain words or count up how many times that word shows up, especially if it's a word you want them to leave the lesson knowing or being super comfortable with. Some post-reading activities with word clouds, you could use it for summarization. This is a snap of the writing that some of my students did earlier in the year. So have students write a summary. So we did, it was Vamos Unit 5, it was on Cuba. And my SPM is showing writing growth throughout the year. So I'm constantly trying to work in some free writes. And I really was overdue for one. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are they going to write about Cuba? And then I was like, okay, I'll give them the word cloud. And then my students did a free write and counted up their words. And it just gave them that little extra support to, be able to remember things about Cuba. Like, yeah, they can see Isla in baseball, but what could they actually do? How could they put that into sentences? How could they put that into a paragraph? So that is a post activity. And you could have them do a creative writing. So have them create a new story. So yeah, they read the story, and maybe this isn't for your most novice of learners, but give them that cloud and have them write a new story. Yeah, heck, you could do that at the beginning, depending on your learners. But then afterwards, when they're really familiar with the vocab, a little creative writing would be neat, or a compare and contrast activity. Now, if you're really working on like certain sets of vocabulary, I picked another story that is from that same path. That
Who
it
are
lives.
Tyson and Ryan, Nasa?
Yeah, those are my kids. And it's called Little Brother Problem, and it's about the small brother taking everything from the older brother, but he gets revenge at the end. And they're absolutely my kids. I write about, actually, there's a story, a math story about my problem with too many coffee cups in my cupboard. There, you're in there somewhere too. But yeah, you could have them, give them two word clouds, give them a second story, and then have them do a compare and contrast. Again, anything that you do to have students play with the language and get more and more repetitions, you're helping students acquire those words. Or you can just use a word cloud as an exit ticket. And I didn't really elaborate on that. Maybe they have to tell you something about it. I don't know. But you could use the word cloud as an exit ticket as well. But so I know I went into a little deeper dive on word clouds, but I'm going to show you some freebie Garbanzo activities that Sarah and I have talked about and created over the last, gosh, I don't know. Every time we go to conferences and we present, we like to go over these ideas, these extension ideas.
But let's
And
be clear that NASA has done 100% of all of that work on those. And Kara said in the chat, is there anywhere that there's a list of NASA's genius ideas, which they are? And so I mentioned that we're going to send out the recording, but
we'll
no,
share
it
like
is
blog
NASA. She's a
posts.
whiz. And NASA, I found, I don't know if I'm supposed to share the direct link, but I did to that freebies folder. I think there's supposed to be like a landing page. I don't know. It's a
Oh,
Google
yeah,
Drive.
and they signed it. Well, they showed up.
I don't know.
They
Yeah, they
showed up.
showed up. We got their email. It doesn't
So
matter.
you can skip that one step. Yeah, we have like
Yeah,
a folder of
yeah,
freebies.
yeah.
Um,
So when you get in there, you'll see there's like an extension activities folder, and then there's a blog folder. And so these are all things that we've shared like publicly that anybody can access, including all the printables for the podcast and vodcast and all that kind of stuff. So do take a dive in there. And but keep going, Nasa, because
oh yeah,
everybody
for
loves
sure.
this, and so do I.
Well, this is like hands down one of my favorite activities. And I try to like refigure the activity so I can use it more. That way they're like, oh, not alpha boxes again. But alpha boxes literally are boxes with the letters of the alphabet. You can do this activity, whole class, teacher led. You will present a screen that looks just like that after students complete a garbanzo. And then you have your students to just challenge them. Just say, how many letters? So you're trying to think of words that start with each letter. And I challenge them. I'm like, oh, there's no way. I bet you can't, get 15 of them. As soon as you make it a challenge, my high schoolers are like, bet, and then they jump in and they try to, or especially if it's later in the day, I'll be like, well, third period got, all boxes, but two. So if you're looking at this, I think I actually made my example. And so what I'm doing is I have this on the board, on my smart board, and I'm writing the words as they give them to me. And you're like, okay, so they're just recalling words. Well, yeah, my novice levels are, you could make your, even towards the end, make them tell you in a sentence. If they say Kyle, you're like, okay, Kyle es un animal. And they're like, no, persona. Oh, Kyle is una persona. Okay. And Kyle, like you can retell this entire story. before I give you like the actual example, maybe you want students to do this first. And I know I did this with the one story about Lucia bowling. I like this printable will be in that folder. You can give this to your students. Maybe you want them to process or actually like, again, be like an active reader. And as they read the Garbanzo, they're filling out the alpha boxes. And then at the end, they already have one. And so they're more confident sharing out at the end. Or, you know, there as a little class competition, you could do like ping pong recall with alpha boxes. But I used the story that I showed you earlier in word cloud form. And then I, you know, came up with as many as I could off the top of my head without going into the story. But they might say words like park or problem, school, spider, sad. I'm sure there were other words. You know, sometimes they'll give you like, if you're a Spanish teacher, they'll give you day or un or una. And like, I'll let them roll with it. Obviously with the enye, I normally let them, you know, if the word has it in it and things like that. But honestly, really, this is just a trick for you to get a chance to retell the story and have them retell the story. And they get really competitive with it. So alpha boxes, again, the slides are in there for you to, sometimes I'll do it like maybe they do a story, but I want to use that story again the next day. So this is my bell ringer. How many letters, like how many words can you come up with that start with letters of the alphabet from the story we read yesterday? So all kinds of ways to use alpha boxes. And I don't know why, but they really do get into the challenge. So if you have any questions on those, by all means, drop them in the chat. That will be in the folder. Another idea is a 4-square story map. These can be edited. I do have them in Spanish and English, but maybe you just want them to kind of think about the text in a different lens. Maybe find something positive, something negative in the story, something important, a question that they have about the story. But, you know, maybe you don't like those topics. Again, there's an editable version where you could like have them find something interesting to you, something you already knew, something that surprised you. You can change these 4 corners, and you don't even need the fancy printable. Take a piece of scratch paper and fold it into 4, and you know, pick what you want students to record as they read through the Garbanzo. Again, it's just getting them to interact a little more with the story, more play with that vocabulary. A read and react. I do love this little activity, especially for a subplan. It's in, oh, Sarah, we're gonna have to take a couple of these and put them in French.
Yes.
Like
I can't
that'll be
wait.
such an easy, you know, easy for someone else.
Yeah.
Like, but
Yeah, not
we
us.
have a read and react in multiple languages, and we'll get it into French. But you know, I've left this as my sub plan when I know the Garbanzo is not going to take the whole period, and I really like that sub. And they've got my 27 8th graders staring at them. So, you know, they're going to jot down the most important part of the story and why, the most surprising part, their favorite part, the funniest or least funniest part. Things like that, just for them to kind of react to the story and think about it in that lens. Again, we have that in a couple languages. And then this would be if you, I've used this before for, I told you there's all those news articles and there's all kinds of nonfiction texts in there. If you want to use those, English and Spanish, you can have them complete like a chart. That freebie's in the folder. Have them, you know, at your lower levels, or have them find cognates, write down the title of the story, draw a little illustration that would, you know, symbolize like that text. Maybe it's an, you know, article on schools or an article on, I don't know, a certain food. They would draw it. And then just answering the 5 W's, right? Who, what, when, where, why, of the story. So that's something. And again, if you're have super novice learners, if they're reading it in Spanish, it's okay for them to answer those in English to show that they understood. But you know, in my Spanish 2s, I would use the Spanish version, or even at the end of Spanish 1. And again, doesn't have to be a reading activity. I keep saying reading, but there's all kinds of listening. Sarah showed you at the end of every lesson, there is a summary slide with audio. If you're not going to have a premium subscription, that's okay. You can read the lesson. You could record the lesson and have students use the audio for any of those activities. Oh, here, this is an example of at the end, how you could just play the whole story. So you could have students listening if you're working on that. One of the audio activities, and I know we don't have too much time, so I'll kind of zip through these. But anytime you are doing a story, you can have 5 correct statements, make them false. And then play or read the lesson aloud and have students fix them. Or maybe you're just retelling, oh, Sarah, we did that at that conference, that beep activity.
Oh,
If
that
you
was
are a
cute.
Somos user and you're retelling the story, retell it wrong. Kyle has a pet rabbit and they'll like beep, right? It's a pet spider. And just keep saying the wrong thing and it really irritates them. I love rage baiting my students a little bit and get them all riled up. So you could give them an activity like that. You could do this circle up activity. Oh, Sarah, here's a mix of images, except we don't have fake images, so that wouldn't
Mhm.
quite work. But you can pick a mix of images from the story, and as your students are listening, they can just circle the things that they do hear. They would be circling the picture of the spider from the story I was using earlier, and a picture of a park, but they would be putting an X through the library because they didn't go to the library, and an X through, the bumblebee because it didn't have anything to do with that. So that's an idea. Again, that one takes a little bit of work. I'm really into things that don't create a lot of work for myself. And another super easy activity is a storyboard. Just have your students listen to that audio or listen to you read the story. Have them draw. This works especially well for like a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So just have students storyboard as they draw, or just have them doodle, like doodle what they're, if you don't want it specifically in order, just have them actively listening and drawing what they are understanding. And we definitely do not have time to talk about our blog, but it is amazing. And it's linked out in the agenda that Sarah shared with you. And there are so many ideas, some blog posts that I've written, that Martina has written, that Sarah has written. We have all kinds of blog posts on there for you guys to get some ideas. Sarah, is there anything on the blog? I feel like that's it for me.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
Yeah, that literally took us right to the very end.
Yeah,
Obviously, you can tell that I could talk about this for a really long
we
time.
love garbanzo,
I
like big,
really do. I use it
weird amount.
all the
Love.
time. So, so
D-
yeah.
If you got any questions, drop them in the chat. We can take questions for a couple minutes here. And or if you want us to show you anything, like we did not show you how to like create a class, how to blah blah blah, how to, we didn't go through
Great.
that. And it's kind of intuitive, but we can also show anybody anything.
And we have
Or
those tutorial videos too.
right, and those are all linked on the agenda. I'm going to put my email address in the chat again. And if you have any lingering questions, lingering lesson requests for any of our 3 languages,
Oh, love.
um, anything at all, like just shoot me an email and let's talk about it because I love talking to teachers and figuring out whether it's a good thing, like, man, I really love that, or how do you do that? Or if it's like, man, that would be great if it was just X, Y, and Z. Like some of our best changes that we've made to the website are when we get feedback from teachers. Like they'll be like, yeah, but if you could just toggle this, it would save me like 10 minutes a week. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let me jump on for the I'm going to answer about the podcast, Nasa, and then different ideas you can use with Garbanzo and life hacks. Aside from just sub plans, I mean,
That's
that's
the
the
biggest life hack. It's
best life hack.
such a flex.
Let me jump in really quick on the podcast and
Well,
I'm
and Sarah, while you're like kind of showing the
yeah,
podcast, just kind of like scroll at the blog just to show them like there's so many articles that do share little hacks and different things.
yeah. Let me I'm gonna take a chance on me not performing very well here and share just like the front facing website, which I'm familiar with, but I feel like I'm always kind of bumbling through clicking on it to find things just because I'm that way. So this is just garbanzo.io. This is where you start if you're logging in like as a teacher or student or whatever. But this is where you can find the blog. So you can get on there, you can find all of those ideas. This is going to, tell you all about different things you can do, different activities. Trying to think. Oh, I tell you what, here's a life hack. Um, Nasa, can you explain? Because I'm realizing I'm hitting that wall of multitasking ability. Can you
Yeah.
explain how teachers use the biblioteca for retakes?
Oh yeah, I touched on that like earlier, but the biblioteca, so many teachers were like, okay, so you did a lesson and a student really bombed it, or your school makes you give retakes, or you allow them to, improve their grade till the end of the quarter, whatever it may be. As you assign a lesson, again, it will show up that you can add it into the biblioteca. And I
Might be able to
highly
show
recommend
that.
doing that anyways, just so, you kind of have a running library of texts that they've already done. But also, again, students can complete a lesson in the library and it will give them a score. They can complete the lesson as many times as they want. So again, whether you're doing this just for free reading or like I did, like I said, the FID day the other day, I was like, choose 3 lessons that interest you. And then I just checked that they had them done in that case. But if I have a student that scores, really poorly or whatever, I don't actually have to. Most of my students are really doing like their garbanzos this year, but boy, in years past, I've always had a kid that you can tell they just click through. It's, Edward. No,
Edward,
is it?
Edward Friendly.
It's Edward Friendly in Sarah's fake
Let me
list of
see if I can bring
students.
him up. Yeah.
Yeah, you can add any lessons to the biblioteca. And again, you can assign it to them first if you want to make sure they do it the first time for the grade. But then, oh man, why'd I get, a 60%? Well, Edward,
Yeah. Yeah, so
you,
this is what Nace is talking about. So I just brought up a sample, fake kid, fake lesson, Billy walks to school. And whenever I'm doing these with my fake kids, Edward always bombs them. So you can see, oh, Edward got a 40. What happened? And you can see that he answered all these questions wrong. And then I wanted to also show, just since we were touching on it, this is what your grade reports in the biblioteca look like. So I can see on this lesson, which is my Blorful Sprout, which is a silly one we wrote for our conference that NASA wrote, using not a real language.
yeah, it was
Um,
nonsense
but
words
you
for our
you
WIDA
can see
presentation.
how many times a student has completed it, the score that they got. So you can see all that data, and you don't have to wear yourself out doing retakes and managing and like, okay, let me just like you can make an individual assignment, absolutely, and it'll act just like a regular assignment for a student. But the hack is just add it to the biblioteca. You're going to get that data, and the kids are going to manage it themselves. So that is a premium hack. And then, so the podcast, I just scrolled down. I was on the front of the website. I was on garbanzo.io. I scrolled all the way to the bottom to get to the podcast, and it's got all the information about all of the episodes. So they do start, there are 30 episodes. They go in order for the most part. So I'd start, if you're with Spanish 1, I'd start with episode 1. But every one of these will link out to a blog post which will tell you about the episode, how long it is, where you can stream it, a link to get to the printable resources, which are really great, activities you can do in class. And
These
this is
are
all
all
free.
free. Yeah, this isn't, even if you don't have a Garbanzo subscription, highly recommend working in some of the podcasts.
Yeah, they're really cute and yeah, and free. And there are Garbanzo lessons that go with them. So if you do have a subscription, you can do it all. Take three
Sarah,
days on it.
can you click back in?
Oh,
Is your computer going quick enough or?
yeah, yeah. What do you want me to show?
Mary just wanted to see, she said, what section can we see the attempts? Like, can you just
Yes.
slower show how they saw that? And
Yes, I
we totally
can.
understand if you guys like, we're gonna keep yapping for a couple minutes and then we'll have to go too. But it is 7:05. If you have to go, we understand. We really appreciate you being here.
So let me show you. So this is the attempts thing. So this is in the biblioteca. So I'm just going to kind of back out and come back in to show you how I got to that. So this would be your biblioteca. I mean, you could just use it for assignments if you wanted, but let's say you want to see your data. So I'm going into a class. This is my English test class, and these are all of the lessons that are in my biblioteca. Now, they've not been attempted many times because all these people are fake. So I have to it has to be me doing it. But with this lesson, I was using it for a demo in a conference the last time we had a conference. So Greta, my fake student, did attempt the lesson a bunch during the demo. So I can see that she completed it once. It says it was October 27th at 7:37 p.m. and she got an 81%. And then I can also see how far she got in her other attempts. So she
All
stopped at
right, perfect.
62%, stopped at 14, and all the times and dates on that. So,
Yeah.
that's super helpful. And what the student would see is the student sees how many attempts they've had and their highest or their most recent score.
Hmm.
So you can see all of that. And then the other view that I probably was a little too fast on was I started in classes. And so I opened up a class and then I went into my assignments. And from there, this is probably what you're doing if you're like transferring your grades to another platform, interim
Hmm.
for Infinite Campus or whatever. And so from here, this is Billy Walks to School. I can see all my students. I can see all their last activity, and I can see
Right.
their scores on that.
And that's where I would split my screen with Power School and the way that I grade. And if you get on our social media and you search grade in the Garbanzo group, so many teachers have different ideas. If I were grading, I would give Adam a 10 out of 10. I would give Carla a 10 out of 10 because she had a 95 and I'm feeling really nice about rounding up. Edward, I would give a 4 out of 10, a 0. Greta would have a 9 out of 10. So that is what I do when I grade mine. Again, if it is like a pick out of the library and I just need a grade book grade, sometimes like I said, I do 5 out of 5 completion. But if I always do completion, then they will start clicking through because they know I'm not going to look at their score. So just word to the wise on that.
Mhm. And you
Um,
can export everything. So you can
yes.
export all of the grades for a certain assignment if you want to do that. And it'll just give you like a Excel kind of document, a CSV file. Or you can go in and get a student. So I could pull up Edward Friendly because it sounds like I'm going to be having a meeting with his mom or dad or whoever. And I can pull up all of his assignments. So, whether it's an IEP meeting or a GIEP meeting or just any kind of meeting, you can pull up everything you need for a kid or for an assignment.
Yeah. Um, So we were asked, are there sort and filter options? I'm not sure.
For lessons or for like
Or for the grade.
kids.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure.
So I'm actually not sure. Have you ever
Oh, in this
sorted?
view,
Oh,
she
in
was
this
saying in
view.
that
Okay.
view that
Let
you
me
were
go
on.
back. I'm curious. I mean, I would think so, but let's look and see. So I'm going to go to let's say I'm in assignments. I could imagine myself wanting to find an assignment. And yeah,
If
I
she
can
wanted to
do.
see like incomplete or not started,
Oh, okay. So I
there's
can
a way to
search by
flip that.
lesson. So I can see, would that be like for a student or for an assignment that's not been completed? Like probably I want to see on an assignment if a student has started it or completed it, right?
Yeah, students. Yeah,
Okay. And it's going to be hard for me because I've got such a
right.
limited view. So like
It's
what am I going to be
limited,
surprised by?
right?
But yeah, so let me find one that do I have any that are
Well,
like
you could especially
closed?
sort it if you export it, right, Sarah? I'm not an
Oh
expert
yeah.
at
Yeah,
that.
you
But
could
if you
definitely.
export it to your sheet, then you can really toggle with how you want it, like lowest to highest, or how you want
Right.
your students organized.
Yeah, yeah, but it will for anything that's open or closed, like it'll give you little flags for if somebody like these haven't closed yet and they're not due yet. So it just says that
Right.
they're ready to be completed. But if the due date had passed, it would say late and we would have, a
Yeah.
flag to know, ooh, we've got a
Incomplete,
problem.
late. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So some different ways to search through those for sure. So